लो हम कर क्या रहे हैं. For example, under the case of inflation, if there is an excessive inflation rise in your economy, it is not good for an economy, developing economy like India, because we have 30 crore people who are living below the poverty line. So वो destroy हो जाएंगे, खत्म हो जाएंगे. Even the middle class will also suffer. So in that case, when the government tries to control the inflation, just to lower down the speed of inflation, even you can say. For example, you are going by a car which is running at a high speed and you just put on brakes. So if you put on brakes, the situation is known as disinflation. It is a result of deliberate efforts by the government or RBI. It is a result of deliberate efforts of the government and RBI. Mean to say, they just curb down the inflation. So अगर उसको धीमा कर दिया तो उसको आपने क्या बोला? Disinflation. ठीक है? Simply you can say decrease in rising speed of inflation. Keep it simple. For example, earlier your inflation was rising 10%, then you put some effort, now 8%, again put some effort, 5%, and so on. It simply means inflation increases at decreasing speed या decreasing rate. Decreasing rate or you can say speed. Simply you can say this. The term is known as disinflation. And again there is a term known as deflation. Beta, it was asked in your prelims that which situation an economy can survive, inflation or deflation? Inflation. We can survive inflation but not deflation, because under deflation the prices of goods and services declines. ठीक है? और डिक्लाइन करने पे क्या होता है कि द प्रोड्यूसर इनकर्स लॉसेस एंड दे स्टॉप प्रोडक्शन, एंड इफ दे स्टॉप प्रोडक्शन देन व्हाट विल हैपन ऑन द इकोनॉमी या इन द इकोनॉमी? ठीक है, पीपल विल गेट अनएम्प्लॉयड एंड दिस सिचुएशन में ड्रैग योर इकोनॉमी इनटू रिसेशन. दैट्स व्हाई दिस सिचुएशन मस्ट बी अवॉइडेड. इट इज द मोस्ट नेगेटिव सिचुएशन फॉर एन इकोनॉमी इफ देयर इज अ deflation. So to bring your economy or to just get your economy out of this situation, some deliberate efforts are also made by the Reserve Bank of India and the Government of India. And after that, if there is a rise in the inflation in your economy, the thing is known as reflation. Reflation. That simply means deliberately increase in the rate of inflation. ठीक है, जानबूझकर इन्फ्लेशन को बढ़ाना. Deliberately increase in the rate of inflation, because RBI as well as the Government of India put some effort to increase inflation again in the economy by increasing the liquidity. The term is known as reflation. So the counter approach of inflation is disinflation and the counter approach of deflation is, that's it. I just draw a diagram, you will get a clear cut idea how these things happen. Disinflation is opposite to the situation of inflation and reflation is opposite situation to deflation. Let's move on to the diagram. It is a deliberate effort. situation will be known as inflation automatically. Market situation, counter approach, just to counter the thing. Exactly. But I'm just drawing at two axes, 0 point. On this vertical axis, I'm taking rate of inflation, okay, which is in percentage, above 0, positive situation, below 0, negative situation. And on the horizontal axis, I'm taking time. So similar to the business cycle, it happens also. Right. पहले समझ लो फिर बनाना. देखो, दिवाली का रॉकेट देखा है ना, बोतल में लगा के जला देते हो, ठीक है, और कभी कभी रॉकेट हिल जाता है हमारा, बोतल हिल जाती है, शर्मा जी का रॉकेट वर्मा जी के घर में घुस जाता है, ऐसा वाला भी देखा होगा. बट एक चीज ऑब्जर्व करना, whenever you lit the rocket and when the rocket has a perfect speed, it goes like straight upward direction. और जैसे जैसे उसकी स्पीड धीमी होती है, it starts leaning like this. So it same happens in the case of inflation. If there is a sharp increase in the prices in your economy, the term is known as, here you can see that there is a sharp increase. Situation is known as inflation. For example, it is approaching to 10% in the economy, say for example. Then government tries to control it by changing the policy. RBI tries to control it by changing the monetary policy. Then it start declining. The rate of increase starts declining, but still the situation is positive. There is a price increase, but there might be chances it is increasing by 10%, then by 8%, then by 5, 6, like that. 5, 2 और ultimately to 0. इतना ही हो सकता है. गाड़ी पे ब्रेक लगाओगे तो 0 तक ही पहुंच सकती है. The situation is known as disinflation. Mean to say inflation increases at decreasing rate. Mean to say here it was 10%, then again it came down to like 9%, then for 8%, 5%, 3% or 2%. There might be situation. The term is known as disinflation. It can be a bearable situation until here, because if it goes below this, it will be harmful for the economy, because now you are having what? Deflation. Beta, deflation is a negative situation when inflation rate becomes negative. When inflation rate becomes negative, the situation is known as deflation. So under the situation of deflation, the prices of goods and services starts declining. The producer will stop production, people will get unemployed, and your economy may drag into the recession. So to protect your economy from falling into the recession, government and RBI again put some effort, फिर से आग लगाने की कोशिश करते हैं, ठीक है, और यहाँ पर लगा दी क्या उन्होंने? आग. और जब आग लगाई ना, सिचुएशन इज नोन एज reflation. Clear with the idea or not? I just wanted to clear two things. Beta, inflation and deflation are market situations, but disinflation and reflation are the efforts made by the government of India or Reserve Bank of India. These are deliberate efforts. Clear with the things? Now you can draw it. मैं समझा नहीं, आपका पॉइंट ही नहीं. साइड में बेटा देखो, चेंज मतलब अगर बढ़ने की बात करें तो बढ़ यहाँ से रहा है ना, दैट्स व्हाई आई पुट दिस लाइन। हमने सेक्शन बनाए, कोई लाइन नहीं बनाई है। आई जस्ट सेग्रीगेट, हाँ सेक्शंस जो बनाए हैं, आई जस्ट रैंडमली पुट इट दैट, कि जहां से मुझे लगा कि ये मैच्योरिटी लेवल पे है, फिर डिक्लाइन कर रहा है, स्पीड कम होगी तो क्या होगा, लीन करेगा, तो इस नाते ऐसा किया है। बेटा दोज हु आर वाचिंग मी ऑनलाइन, इज इट क्लियर टू यू और नॉट गाय? जस्ट मेक मी कंफर्म whether it is clear to you or not. Thank you Saurabh, Sanjay, Pallavi, Shivani, Raj. Everybody, thank you dear. Beta, put on a heading, after drawing this, put on a heading. Types of inflation and take a fresh page. उसी पे adjust मत करने लगना, कंजूस लोग। और अपनी कॉपी को ना थोड़ा सा लैंडस्केप मोड में करो। लैंड पोर्ट्रेट है ना, लैंडस्केप कर दो, इतना तो पता ही होगा। तुम लोग इन कॉपियों पे, बच्चों वाली कॉपी पे लिखना कब छोड़ोगे? तुमसे एक्सपेक्टेशन नहीं है, रफ है ये, सरकारी काम हो रहा है, इधर रफ उधर फेयर, बचपन की आदत है। ठीक है, नहीं करो ऐसा, सब बर्बाद हो जाएगा, क्योंकि वहां बी कॉपी मिलती नहीं है, पेजेस लिमिटेड होते हैं, प्लस क्या है कि आपका फॉन्ट साइज का आइडिया होना चाहिए, इस वजह से मैं सजेस्ट करता हूं कि उस पर लिखो, ठीक है, ताकि क्योंकि वहां आंसर लिखने के बाद तुम गिनोगे थोड़ी कितने वर्ड्स लिखे हैं, तुम्हें पता है कि एक पेज पे मेरे इतने आते हैं, उस एवरेज से तुम जोड़ लेते हो कितना मैंने डाला है वर्ड्स, अदरवाइज फिर वही करना, एक वर्ड दो तीन ऐसे करके। टाइप्स ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन, beta n number of types of inflation can be there and also in books, and you get confused. So beta, always remember a logic, whenever we make classification or we make types, we just take a basis, because without having a proper basis we cannot make classification. For example, if I want to check the height of the students, I have taken a basis na height. If I want to check the progress of the students, मैंने क्वेश्चन दिया, देखता हूं उस पर कितने नंबर आते हैं, तो आई हैव टेकन अ बेसिस लाइक क्वेश्चन या नंबर, क्लियर? So there are two bases generally. One is at what rate inflation is increasing. Rate means percentage, by what percentage inflation is increasing. And second is cause. What is the cause behind increasing inflation? कारण जिसे आप कहते हो. So on the basis of rate, we can have 3 to 5 types of inflation. For example, cripping inflation, walking inflation, running inflation, ठीक है, रेंगने लगती है, टहलने लगती है, दौड़ने लगती है, फिर पगला जाती है, गैलोपिंग इन्फ्लेशन, और उसके बाद गर्दा झाड़ देती है, हाइपर इन्फ्लेशन, एकदम मस्त वाला फीलिंग आएगा, हाइपर इन्फ्लेशन, बिकॉज यू जस्ट गो इनटू द बार्टर सिस्टम ना, ज्यादा रेट बढ़ जाएगा तो क्या करोगे, बार्टर सिस्टम. So I just take a word, here we see the percentage, by what percent inflation is increasing, ठीक है. So there is a no set defined rule, कोई set defined idea नहीं कितना परसेंट होगा, जो हम एक एवरेज मानते हैं हम उसकी बात कर रहे हैं, कोई सेट नहीं है, कोई डेफिनेशन इसकी नहीं है. Under the cripping inflation, the inflation percentage is 0 to 3%. Under walking, it is 3 to 10%. Under running, it is 10 to 20%, you can say that. Or under galloping, it becomes in 3 digit, 999%. And hyperinflation, we cannot measure it, that's why it becomes infinite. infinity. There are certain causes also behind inflation. Okay. There are certain causes also behind inflation, like demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, structural inflation basically found in, you can say, developing economies, structural inflation, or you can say bottleneck inflation. It is also known by a name of bottleneck inflation, and a term coined by India, skewflation. Skewflation is a term coined by India in 2009-10 budget and economic survey. Skewflation is also there. So these are certain kinds of inflation. Let's have a brief intro of this. Rest of the things I made you write in the, you can say that notes. So there is no need to write the thing, just get an idea. What is exactly? What exactly they are. Let's talk about this one, rate of inflation. Okay. The first one is cripping inflation. Cripping inflation is considered as moderate situation for an economy, and it is considered as positive one because it has no any regressive impact on the economy. Mean to say, I'm just taking a word, regressive impact. What do you mean by regressive impact? It won't hurt poor people. Okay? For example, beta, if there is a inflation, if there is a certain rate of inflation in the economy, so there may be chances it has a regressive impact, means hurting poor more than rich. Hurting poor more than rich. Okay? So it doesn't have a regressive impact on the economy. So we are talking about cripping inflation. Under this, there is a price rise 0 to 3%. Mean to say, being a producer, you know that the rupees 100 rupee thing maybe goes to rupees 103. So beta, there is a 3% rise maximum. There is a 3% rise maximum, and this is a positive note for the economy because it will stimulate the production in your economy, and due to which people will get job. Mean to say, it will increase employment also and income level also, and it has no any bad impact on rich, poor or middle class. That's why this percentage is preferred in the economy. I told you na, it is just like salt in our meal. So it is a positive situation for an economy, but it is a control situation. If you do not control it na, it gets changed into टहलने लगती है, walking inflation. बच्चा बड़ा हो गया. Walking inflation, under this walking inflation, what was the percentage? 3 to 10%. So here the rate of increase in inflation is 10%. Let's suppose rupees 100 goods and services become 110. 110 वाला कितने का हो जाएगा? 121, right? There is a 10% increase in the inflation. Beta, it can be a good situation where there is a no poor class, because poor class will get destroyed under this situation. For the country like India, it is must avoidable situation because we have 30 crore people who are living below the poverty line. So they won't be able to survive actually. What happens? Poor class will get destroyed because of the fact that their income is uncertain. किसी दिन मिला, किसी दिन नहीं मिला, because their income is uncertain. जिस दिन मिला, they will have a meal, otherwise they will left भूखा पेट. ऐसा भी हो सकता है, तो दे विल गेट डिस्ट्रॉयड, ठीक है. So it becomes a responsibility of government and Reserve Bank of India to control this situation. If they are unable to do so, it gets converted into running inflation. Running inflation, where the percentage increases 10 to 20%. Suppose there is a thing of rupees 100, it becomes 120. 120 वाला कितने का हो जाएगा? 142, like that. So it is a bigger problem for the countries having larger middle class population, because now it's a time for middle class to get destroyed because of the fact that their income is fixed in nature, because these are salary based people. If there is a no increase, okay, in accordance with the inflation in the salary, they won't be able to survive. और पता है यार तुम्हें, अमीर अमीर होता, गरीब गरीब होता, जो कुछ नहीं होता वो बीच वाला कौन कह रहा है? मिडिल क्लास. ऐसा मत बोलो. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इंडिया इज द लार्जेस्ट मिडिल क्लास country in the world, and these people belong to the service class mostly, and they get salary. Most of the people belong to the private sector. अगर उनकी सैलरी उसके अकॉर्डिंग नहीं बढ़ेगी, they won't be able to survive, खत्म हो जाएंगे. और हमारे साथ एक ही प्रॉब्लम है, हमारे पास सिर्फ एक चीज होती है, सपने, ठीक है, जो कि पूरे नहीं होते. हर मिडिल क्लास वाला सोचता है या तो प्रधानमंत्री बनेगा या फिर अंबानी बनेगा, बीच वाला सीन ही नहीं है, ठीक है. सबके लाइफ में उसको सपने में दिखती है BMW 6 सीरीज या कुछ ऐसी चीजें, बैकी बैकी बातें हम लोग करते हैं. लाइफ में हमेशा सोचते हैं अब टर्निंग पॉइंट आने वाला है, लेकिन वो आता नहीं है, बिकॉज वी बिलोंग टू द मिडिल क्लास. उसमें से भी दोज हु बिलोंग टू द सर्विस क्लास आर द टैक्स पेयर्स ऑफ द कंट्री. गवर्नमेंट टेक इनकम टैक्स फ्रॉम अस ओनली. 4,70,000 crore is your tax collection, direct tax collection. I'm talking about particularly income tax. We are the income taxpayers, the amount of which is spent on defense, education, and many more services enjoyed by the country wholly. We are not given any privilege. हमारे बच्चे आर्मी में, हमारे बच्चे डॉक्टर, हमारे बच्चे इंजीनियर. देश की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी किसके कंधे पे? मिडिल क्लास वाले पे. गरीब गरीब है और अमीर अमीर है. अमीर को फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता तुमसे. बढ़वा लो पेट्रोल का दाम 1200 रुपए, तब भी दौड़ेंगे 28 गाड़ियां लेके. कर लो जो करना है. और गरीब क्या है? गरीब है, उसका कोई वही नहीं है, बेस ही नहीं है. So the problem lies only with middle class. So if there is an inflation like that, running inflation, the middle class population won't be able to survive. Clear with the idea or not? ठीक है. And beta, if this situation happens in your country, so this class will also get destroyed. Again, there's a situation called, after running it becomes galloping. Galloping inflation. Beta, galloping is a word taken from the, you can say, the walking style of horse. Walking style of horse. Galloping is a word taken from walking style of horse. There are 4 types of horse walking in which there is a galloping. कूद कूद कर चलना. तो महंगाई भी यहाँ कूद कूद कर बढ़ती है, इसका कोई सर पैर नहीं होता है, ठीक है. You cannot imagine how much inflation will rise. For example, in this situation, inflation goes like 22.999%. Let's suppose 1000%. 1000% means 10 times. And you cannot imagine, even you cannot determine the time period in which it becomes 10 times increase. Right? For example, rupees 100 product may be of rupees 1000 on the second day, and in the evening it becomes 10,000 also. So there is a no definite time period. No definite time period. And here what happens? 2 classes खत्म हो गई ना आपकी, मिडिल एंड पुअर क्लास. then your society will have only two classes, rich and poor. Rich and poor. One person will be there who is having meal from you can say 5-star hotel, in the 5-star hotel, and one is जो कूड़े में से खाना बीन कर खा रहा होगा. और कोई भी आदमी भूखा पेट नहीं रहना चाहता, तो गरीब आदमी क्या करेगा? बंदूक उठाएगा और रईस आदमी से छीनने लगेगा. ठीक है, तो आपके देश में क्राइम रेट वगैरह क्या होता है? इट स्टार्ट इंक्रीजिंग. People starts losing their faith in the economy in the country also. This happens in this case. For example, you can take the flaring example of Venezuela. In the Venezuela after 2014, this situation was there. All the grocery shops, all the medical stores were looted by the people. And after finishing all the food item, they start killing animals also. बंदर बिल्ली कुत्ता मार के खाने लगे. Venezuela is a country of Latin America which has a highest proven oil reserve, largest proven oil reserve. There are certain situations, I am not going into detail. Okay? So this happened in the case of Venezuela recently, 2018 crisis. So galloping inflation can be there. You can take the example of Afghanistan, because this inflation is situation based, and the things are being sold on at you can say on auction basis. For example कि बिस्लेरी जो 10 रुपए का पानी आता है 2500 रुपए में बिक रहा था वहां पर, बिकॉज ऑफ द सिचुएशन. हाँ, सिचुएशन बेस्ड हो जाता है काम. एंड दिस सिचुएशन अगर आ गई तो आपके देश में क्राइम रेट बढ़ जाएगा. छोटे मोटे शरीफ लोग गैंग बना लेंगे, है ना, और अमीरों को मार के खाना शुरू कर देंगे. राइट? And last situation is what? Hyperinflation. Hyperinflation. Under the hyperinflation, what happens? We cannot measure it, so it becomes infinite. It becomes infinite. Okay? Under this situation, your value of rupee, या value of the currency, या purchasing power of the currency goes to zero. Means it becomes scrap. The situation firstly happened in 1923, Germany, after the First World War. You can take the example of 1946, Hungary. You can take the example of, you can say 2005, Zimbabwe. And 2018, you can take the example of Venezuela. Situation of hyperinflation was there in all these countries. Achha, what happens in situation under hyperinflation? The currency value becomes zero. People start trading into barter, at the barter system. They start trading like that. They start exchanging goods against goods, services against services. ये होने लगता है. या precious metal में they start dealing, because currency has no value. This situation firstly came into, you can say, focus during 1923 in Germany. You must be knowing there was a First World War from 1914 to 1918. So the biggest loser of the war was Germany. There was a Treaty of Versailles. What do you know that? Treaty of Versailles. Under that treaty, Germany has signed an agreement with the winning nations in which Germany had to compensate the war losses to the winning countries. And for that, some part of the Germany, some land portion of the Germany was occupied by the France. And remaining portion, for the remaining payment, Germany started printing its own currency, Dutch mark. And you know that what is surplus has a less value and what is in deficit has a higher value. तो इसने क्या किया? लिक्विडिटी को बढ़ा दिया. जो उन्होंने बेहिसाब छपाई की नोट की, इसके नाते इनका लिक्विडिटी क्या हो गई? बढ़ गई. एंड वन टाइम केम when it became zero. You can see the photographs of Germany at this time. The लोग देखोगे कि आप जो है नोट जला के चाय बना रहे हैं, खाना बना रहे हैं, क्योंकि लकड़ियां महंगी है, नोट सस्ती है. हाँ एग्जैक्टली. सड़कों पे नोट लोग ना कागज के भाव बेच रहे हैं, कुछ उसके बदले मिल जाए. बोरे में लोग लेके नोट जाते थे, पॉकेट में सामान लेके आते थे. The same fault, the same mistake was continued by Hungary, 1946. The same mistake was continued by Zimbabwe. Robert Mugabe was the president at that time, and he dreamt in a night, let's make our country wealthier. But how come? By printing currency. Let's print currency and distribute among the people. लेकिन ये इकोनॉमिक्स ना बहुत अल्टीमेट लेवल की होती है. सपोज मोदी जी ने सबके अकाउंट में 15 लाख का ट्रांसफर मार दिया, 15 लाख की कोई औकात रह जाएगी? ऐसे दो बंदे दुकानों पे लड़ पड़ेंगे, बोल कितना चाहिए, तो बोलेगा मेरे पास है 15, मेरे पास भी है, और मेरे पास छोड़ो, मेरे बीवी और 2 बच्चे भी हैं, कुल मिला के 60 लाख है मेरे पास. अब बोलो, दिस विल हैपन एंड दिस विल क्रिएट अ कियोस इन द इकोनॉमी. तो जो हम वो कहते हैं ना कि क्यों नहीं बांट दे रहे, नहीं बांट सकते, इकोनॉमी विल गेट फेल्ड बिकॉज आपके पास गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज भी होने चाहिए. अगर वो नहीं होंगे तो जाहिर सी बात है पैसा सबके पास होगा, गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज किसी के पास नहीं होंगे. फॉर एग्जांपल एक समोसा होगा क्लास में, ठीक है, तो गरीब आदमी बोलेगा मेरे जैसा 5 रुपए, इधर ये 10, 50, 100, भाई 1 किलो सोना, ऐसा वाला सीन हो जाएगा. बिकॉज there might be a situation ki we have less goods and services and more demand in the economy because of the each and everyone has a stronger purchasing power. Am I clear to? This also happens in the case of Venezuela, क्योंकि इनको देना था सरकारी नौकरियां. 74% was unemployment in Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro was about to come in the government and he promised to the citizens of his nation that I will provide you government jobs. And the primary occupation of Venezuela is what? Refineries. They extract their crude oil and refine them and sell in the international market. But the problem lies in the crude oil of Venezuela because the content of sand is higher and that's why refining cost is higher. That's why they were not able to match the international prices. और इनकी कंपनियां, इनकी जो कंपनीज थी, इन्होंने नेशनलाइज किया था जिन कंपनीज को, 4-5 कंपनियां भी थी, दे स्टार्टेड गेटिंग फेल्ड. इन्होंने ये भी कहा था कि कंपनियों ने बोला कि सर वी डोंट हैव मच एब्जॉर्बेशन कैपेसिटी, एब्जॉर्प्शन कैपेसिटी हमारे पास नहीं, हम इतने लोगों को कहाँ एडजस्ट करेंगे, काम ही नहीं है हमारे पास. इन्होंने कहा तुम टेंशन मत लो, मैं हूं ना, तुम्हें क्या करना है, सैलरी देनी है, ठीक है, और वो पैसा मैं तुम्हें दे रहा हूं टैक्स से लेके, क्या दिक्कत है. सोशलिस्ट पैटर्न ऑफ थिंकिंग, एवरीबडी मस्ट हैव अ गवर्नमेंट जॉब. तो इन्होंने क्या किया, कुछ लोग ऐसे भी थे who used to wear the company's t-shirt and get salary, a handsome salary by sitting at home only. This will increase the liquidity and purchasing power in the economy, not goods and services. And they went into galloping inflation and ultimately reached to hyperinflation. I just want to ask you a question. Why does this happen? Your currency value becomes zero. Give me a logical answer if you have. Excessive amount of printing of notes. आप में से कितने लोग नानी के घर जाते थे बचपन में, या अभी भी जाते हो? अभी कौन कौन जाता है? जाते हो? अरे ग्रेट, जाते हो, लड्डू तो मेरा नाम रोशन करोगे. देखो नानी के घर हम लोग जाते थे तो वी हैड अ फीलिंग लाइक जो बाइडन होता था ना. तुम गांव में आग लगा दो, तुम्हें कोई बोलने वाला नहीं है. डिफेंस मिनिस्ट्री यूज्ड टू बी इन हैंड्स ऑफ नानी. जो जो तुम्हें डांटे नानी डिफेंस में खड़ी हो जाती थी, नानी यूज्ड टू स्टैंड अगेंस्ट एवरीबॉडी। 2 दिन के लिए तो आया, तुम डांट रहे हो, कोई नहीं पूछने वाला था तुम्हें। बट व्हाट हैपेंस व्हेन वी आर एट आवर होम 24/7 365, इज्जत मिलती है। चप्पल उतार दो, पिट जाओगे तुम घर में। लड़कों के साथ और डिसएडवांटेज है, बेचारे दोनों ही कंडीशन में डांट सुनते हैं, कुछ करे तो डांट, कुछ ना करे तो डांट, पढ़े तो डांट, ना पढ़े तो डांट, ताने मिलते रहते हैं। पढ़ेंगे तो क्यों डांट पड़ेगी यार, ताने क्यों मिलेंगे, इतना पढ़ता है कुछ नहीं हो रहा है। इसके साथ के लड़के कहां से कहां निकल गए, मिलते हैं ताने ऐसे। वो देखो शर्मा जी का लड़का, शादी हो गई, 4 बच्चे हो गए, ये अभी भी अंडर प्रोग्रेस है, लाइक दिस। ठीक है, ना पढ़े तो यूनिवर्सल रूल इज दैट कि यू आर आवारा, निकम्मा, कचरा, कचरा ऑफ मोहल्ला इवन। ठीक है, मेरे मोहल्ले में तो हम, जो ऐसे लड़के होते हैं ना जो मतलब जाके बाजार में खड़े होते हैं, जिनके पास कोई काम नहीं होता, जो केवल डीलिंग्स करते हैं, उनको ट्रैक्टर बोलते हैं, ट्रैक्टर ऑफ कॉलोनी। ट्रैक्टर, जेसीबी, रोलर, दीज आर द नेम्स यूज्ड फॉर अस। ठीक है, दिस हैपेंस। ये होता क्यों है? व्हाट इज मैटर? मैटर इज अवेलेबिलिटी, मैटर इज अवेलेबिलिटी। What is less available in the market has a higher value, and what is more available in the market has a lower value. And that's why we purchase gold, not petal or iron, bronze or iron. We do not purchase that. अगर सोना 100 रुपए में 1.25 किलो मिलने लगेगा, खरीदोगे? नहीं. We just purchase in 50,000, 60,000 of 10 grams. That's why there is a demand of gold. ठीक है, कहीं कहीं इकोनॉमिक्स के प्रिंसिपल भी फेल कर जाते हैं, बिकॉज प्रिंसिपल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स सेज लाइक कि इफ यू हैव अ हायर यूटिलिटी यू विल हैव अ हायर वैल्यू, लेकिन इट गेट्स फेल्ड इन दिस सिचुएशन. फॉर एग्जांपल, देयर इज अ डायमंड एंड देयर इज अ वाटर. व्हाट इज मोर यूजफुल एंड हैज अ हायर यूटिलिटी? वाटर. विदाउट वाटर यू कैन नॉट सर्वाइव, बट स्टिल वाटर ज्यादा है और डायमंड क्या है? कम है. डायमंड इज अ ग्रेटर वैल्यू देन वाटर. वहां उसकी यूटिलिटी को हम इग्नोर कर देते हैं. क्यों? क्योंकि अवेलेबिलिटी को हम चेक करते हैं. मेनी टाइम्स इट हैपेंस इन सर्टेन केसेस अवेलेबिलिटी इज मोर इंपॉर्टेंट और अवेलेबिलिटी रूल्स ओवर यूटिलिटी. और यही मुझे इकोनॉमिक्स पसंद नहीं आती. ठीक है, यही एक केस है ऐसा. क्लियर विद दिस? सो दिस वाज द केस. नेक्स्ट वन वाज वी वर डूइंग अबाउट causes. Causes में first one was demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation. अवेलेबिलिटी ओवर यूटिलिटी को यू भी देख सकते हो. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, तुम चाय पी रहे हो जस्ट सपोज, एंड उसमें मक्खी गिर जाए तो क्या करोगे? सिंपली बताओ क्या करोगे, एक्चुअल वाला. चाय या मक्खी? चाय फेंक दोगे. लेकिन वही मक्खी देसी घी में गिर जाए तो क्या करोगे? मक्खी फेंकोगे. क्यों? अवेलेबिलिटी, प्राइस, एवरीथिंग इज. समझ में आया? तुम वही हो, मक्खी वही है, चेन सिचुएशन हो जा रही है. एक तरफ चाय है, दूसरी तरफ देसी घी है. यही इकोनॉमिक्स मुझे पसंद नहीं आती है. अगर तुम्हारे अंदर सफाई या हाइजीन को लेके इतना बड़ा फैक्टर है तो जस्ट थ्रो द देसी घी ऑल्सो. नहीं, वो नहीं फेंकेंगे, महंगा है, 400 रुपए चाय, क्या फिर बना लेंगे. दिस हैपेंस. क्या कह रहे हो? सो बट अंडर दिस सिचुएशन aggregate demand is high in the economy in comparison to aggregate supply. ठीक है, supply of goods and services are less and demand of goods and services are high due to what? Due to increased purchasing power or increased liquidity. Beta, demand side inflation reflects what? In economy, there is a surplus or excess liquidity, and due to which people have enough purchasing power या more purchasing power. But demand side से जो inflation आता है उसके दो ही कारण होते हैं. First one is excess of liquidity and excess of purchasing power, due to which we face demand pull inflation. The meaning is in the name. Demand is drawing inflation. Demand is dragging inflation. Demand pull inflation, like that. ठीक है. One word is used there. Inflationary gap. It is the concept of NCERT. Inflationary gap. What do you mean by this? Can anybody explain it quickly? कुछ और पहुंच के रह गए. मुझे अच्छा लग रहा था तुम बता रहे थे. You are just about to that. इधर कोई सन्नाटा क्यों है भाई? एनसीईआरटी चल रही है ना? नहीं चल रही है. Keep it simple यार. बेटा, there is a potential production, or you can say potential GDP in your economy. ठीक है? The GDP which you have at full employment level. Full employment level. The GDP you have at the full employment level is known as potential GDP. If the aggregate demand in the economy is higher than this potential level, या potential level of, what will happen? It will increase the demand pull inflation. And if the aggregate demand in the market is below this potential, it will create deflationary gap. People will start, deflationary gap को यूज समझ सकते हो. देखो, पोटेंशियल जीडीपी वो होती है जो आपकी इकोनॉमी की कैपेसिटी को दिखाती है एट अ फुल एम्प्लॉयमेंट लेवल. यू हैव दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ कैपेसिटी. इफ देयर इज अ एक्सेस डिमांड इन द मार्केट, ड्यू टू व्हिच देयर विल बी इन्फ्लेशनरी गैप. ठीक है, दिस इज द एक्सेस डिमांड. ठीक है, इफ देयर इज अ लोअर डिमांड देन पोटेंशियल, देन व्हाट विल हैपन? द प्रोड्यूसर विल स्टार्ट reducing their production level, and this will create a deflationary gap. This will drag our economy into deflation. ठीक है, क्योंकि आपने क्या किया है कि डिमांड कम कर दी है, तो लोगों ने रेट बढ़ाना भी क्या किया है? कम कर दिया है. Then this will create deflationary gap in the economy. Just to stick this idea, there is a potential GDP and the aggregate demand. If above the potential, it will create an inflationary gap, and if it is below the potential, it will create a deflationary gap. Clear with the thing? You can write this. This was a question of PT. Potential GDP reflects the capacity of your economy at full employment level. Mean to say, each and everybody is having job. Everybody is in job. We are doing our best. This is our maximum capacity, like that. For example, there is a 200 speed in your bike. So you are running already on 200. ठीक है? संदीप, exactly. हाँ बेटा, देखो, पोटेंशियल है अपनी यहाँ पर. हमारी डिमांड, क्योंकि परचेजिंग पावर हमारी बढ़ गई, तो यहाँ पर आ गई. तो जाहिर सी बात है, प्रोडक्शन लेवल बढ़ने में टाइम लगेगा. या लेवल पे तो हम हैं ही, प्रोडक्शन कैसे बढ़ाएंगे? तो दिस विल क्रिएट अ इन्फ्लेशनरी गैप, बिकॉज अब क्या बढ़ सकता है? प्राइस. अभी क्या बढ़ेगा? प्राइस. ठीक है, इफ वी हैव द पोटेंशियल लाइक दिस एंड वी आर डिमांडिंग हियर, ठीक है, यानी अपनी फुल कैपेसिटी तक भी हम नहीं पहुंच रहे हैं. वी कैन प्रोड्यूस मोर, बट देयर इज लोअर डिमांड इन द मार्केट. देन व्हाट विल हैपन? जस्ट टू इंक्रीज द डिमांड, द प्रोड्यूसर विल रिड्यूस देयर प्राइसेस, ताकि वो यहां तक आ सके. So they will reduce the prices, and this will create a situation of deflationary gap. Potential GDP. Just go through the NCERTs. If you have any doubt, I will clear all the things. Is it clear? Next one was, dear, cost push inflation. Cost push inflation. What do you mean by, dear, cost push inflation? What do you mean by cost push inflation? Two minutes. Structural inflation, this was in your economic survey, and right now you must be knowing about there is a protest in 5 countries, 5 to 6 countries across the world, and this period is called as inflation 2.0, because during the from the 1965 to 1982 there was a great inflation, there was a situation of great inflation in the world economy. Now you are facing the same situation again in this year 2022, and the term is known as great inflation 2.0. Many countries have started protesting against inflation, protesting against their government. For example, Pakistan, for example, Sri Lanka, Belgium, many countries are there. ठीक है, तो हर जगह इन्फ्लेशन का विरोध हो रहा है, पॉलिसीज का विरोध हो रहा है. People are not able to survive the inflation, and this situation is also known as return back of great inflation again in the economy. 65 से 82 तक था. ठीक है, and if you look at the scenario, you will find this type of inflation is also there. Structural, supply side bottlenecks are there, and if you go through the economic survey of this year, you will find this type of inflation caused by structural things. So whenever there is a cost push inflation and structural inflation, it is known as supply side inflation. Supply side inflation. It is not demand side, it is supply side inflation. What happens in both cases? Under the cost push inflation, what happens? Cost of production rises. Cost of making goods and services rises. Cost of production rises. Into say cost of making goods and services rises. Keep it simple. Here, normally cost of raw material या cost of component, you can say wages of labor rise, and that's why this you can say this push the inflation rate in the economy, and that's why it is known as cost push inflation. Okay? There is no any inflation coming from the demand side, it is a inflation coming from the supply side. So the cost of manufacturing increases. For example, ईंट बालू गिट्टी सीमेंट सरिया का दाम बढ़ जाए तो मकान बनवाना क्या होगा? महंगा हो जाएगा. Keep it simple. It happens like this. But there is a wage price inflation also, and a specific word is used for this: wage price spiral. Wage price spiral. Okay? So it was a question of your prelims. There is a case wage and there is a case of prices of goods and services. Okay? But in those countries which where there are more labor unions, it happens actually, because the labor unions put pressure on the producers to increase their wages, and due to which they have to adjust with the prices. So increase in wage also correspond to the increase in prices, and due to which after some times, due to increase in prices, there is an inflation, and they will start again asking about increasing wages, and this just made a spiral. Laborers will try to increase their wages, producer will try to increase the prices, and it will increase the inflation in the economy, what you known as wage price spiral. Am I clear to you or not? So the question was, in which country such type of situation may occur? In which country such type of situation may occur? The country having more labor unions. The country has more labor unions, such type of situation may occur. यूसुफ सर generally it happens in the case of countries having more labor unions. Second thing is what? Beta, there was a word structural inflation. Beta, under structural inflation, what happens? It is also known as bottleneck inflation. Keep it very much simple. Bottleneck inflation or structural inflation. Uh, you must be knowing about this word, system. Yeah, a broader term you can use for this, supply side bottleneck. Hurdles, supply side bottlenecks, yeah, hurdles. You know that India is the largest producer of pulses, but still जो आपकी अरहर दाल है वो 200 रुपए किलो तक बिकती है. India is, you can say, India has abundant, you can say, ample amount of onion also. And still, onion rose to, the price of onion rose to 200 almost, 180. I purchased in Delhi also, last year. सोचो, ऐसा नहीं है कि आपके पास चीजें नहीं है. India has a buffer stock. We can feed the whole world for 6 months. We have that much of buffer stock, but still there are supply side bottlenecks. ठीक है? Thousands of tons of food items, yeah, you can say crops, cereals, get destroyed, get spoiled at the stations, at the warehouses. For example, government procure crops from the farmers at MSP. And on the behalf of government, this crop is purchased by Food Corporation of India. And if you ask me about, and you can say that ki wherever there is a question like warehouse facility, we have a temporary, you can say, settlement. हम करते क्या हैं? Mostly in the most of the cases, you can go to the कानपुर का स्टेशन आप देख लो, पीछे गोडाउन है. ठीक है, कुत्ते के साइज के वहां चूहे दौड़ रहे होंगे. छोटा मोटा है ही नहीं साइज. मुझे लगा ये नया कुत्ते का ब्रीड है, फिर पता चला चूहा है. 5 किलो का चूहा कभी देखा है? और जब पीछे जाके देखा, मैंने कहा निकल कहां से रहे सब भाई लोग. डर लग रहा था यार उनसे. मैंने कहा मुझे घसीट ना ले जाए. आपका गेहूं सड़ रहा था. क्यों? क्योंकि ऊपर सिर्फ त्रिपाल डाल के रखी हुई है. उसी स्टेशन के बाहर आओ तो कम से कम आपको कुछ नहीं तो 1.5 दर्जन से ज्यादा गरीब लोग दिखेंगे कटोरा लेके भीख मांगते हुए. So the problem is what? Problem is management. Problem is food supply chain. ठीक है? So sometimes it happens in an economy and due to which the rate of inflation increases. ठीक है? And the thing is known as bottleneck inflation. ठीक है? So beta, we have seen demand pull, inflation. Second one was cost push, and third one was bottleneck. Bottleneck inflation. In examination, the causes behind these type of inflation are asked. So what must be the causes behind this demand pull inflation? के क्या causes हो सकते हैं? फटाफट You can write it, increase in income level or purchasing power. What can be the other thing? Speculative environment. Speculative environment. You can take the example of Bihar. Once a rumor was spread there कि the prices of salt would rise to 200 rupees per kg. बोरिया का बोरिया नमक खरीद कर रखने लगे सर. खतरनाक सिचुएशन. ये होता है कभी कभी स्पेकुलेशन. देयर में भी चांसेस कि फिर से लॉकडाउन लग जाए, देयर में भी चांसेस कि वॉर हो जाए. स्पेकुलेटिव एक्टिविटीज कैन बी देयर. प्रेजेंस ऑफ ब्लैक मनी, बिगेस्ट कॉज. प्रेजेंस ऑफ ब्लैक money in the economy, and the economy having the black money is known as parallel economy. Parallel economy or black economy, what you call black economy. In India it is 40%. It is estimated 40%. 40% of the GDP black money से. तो यहाँ पर मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी सब फेल हो जाएगी. देयर विल बी इन्फ्लेशन. रोक ही नहीं सकते आप. और क्या हो सकता है? और क्या हो सकता है? वही ऊपर वाला ही पॉइंट आ गया. परचेसिंग पावर बढ़ जाएगी ना. ऊपर वाला ही पॉइंट आ गया. एनी मोर पॉइंट कम इन योर माइंड? इंटरेस्ट रेट कम होगा तो यही वाला पॉइंट हो गया ना. इंक्रीज इन इनकम लेवल और परचेसिंग पावर. एनी मोर पॉइंट? चलो इसका बता दो, कॉस्ट पुश का. इंक्रीज इन प्राइसेस ऑफ रॉ मटेरियल्स, wages or components. Intermediate consumption I'm talking about. Second reason can be increase in indirect taxes, GST, like that. Increase in indirect taxes. Similarly it happens here, decrease in direct and indirect taxes, etc. Increase in indirect taxes. Reasons और क्या हो सकते हैं? Increase in transportation cost, increase in prices of crude oil or electricity, etc. नेक्स्ट है बॉटलनेक इन्फ्लेशन के क्या कॉजेज हो सकते हैं? What can be the causes of bottleneck inflation? Or inavailability of, कानपुर थोड़ी है, inavailability of warehouses and cold storage. ठीक है, hoarding, black marketing, and stockpiling. ठीक है, illegal illegal transactions, इलीगल ट्रांजैक्शंस, स्मगलिंग वगैरह की बात कर लो तो हर साल कई हजार टन अनाज जो है वी एक्सपोर्ट टू बांग्लादेश बाय इलीगल मींस एंड वी जस्ट शो इट अंडर डैमेज, अंडर स्पॉइल्ड फूड आइटम्स लाइक दैट, स्मगलिंग भी होती है. व्हाट कैन बी द रीजन? नेचुरल कैलेमिटी, हाँ, दिस may डिस्ट्रक्ट द सप्लाई चेन. Natural calamity or act of God, etc. can be the reasons of bottleneck inflation. हो सकता है. So beta, such type of questions are asked from you. What are the reasons? Last one was skewflation. Dear, if you have any doubt till here, you can ask me. हाँ, हाँ, स्ट्रक्चरल भी हो जाएगा, डिसरप्शंस हो जाते हैं ना. फॉर एग्जाम्पल कोविड पैंडेमिक, यू कैन टेक द एग्जाम्पल. इसमें क्या हुआ कि चाइना वुहान से स्टार्ट हुआ, ठीक है. वुहान इज द लार्जेस्ट सप्लायर ऑफ फोर थिंग्स, मतलब यू कैन से वी टेक रॉ मटेरियल ऑफ फोर थिंग्स: प्लास्टिक, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स, ऑटोमोबाइल्स एंड फार्मास्यूटिकल्स. ठीक है. तो इन चार इंडस्ट्रीज का जो रॉ मटेरियल आता है कहाँ से आता है? वुहान से. वुहान लॉकडाउन में गया, डिस्ट्रप्शन आ गया. Semiconductor, you can take the example of glaring example of semiconductor, shortage of semiconductors can be there also. Supply side disruptions. स्ट्रक्चरल में एक लाइन लिख लें. What is the structural inflation? Just write two lines. Such type of inflation occurs. Such type of inflation occurs due to supply side disruptions. Supply side disruptions. Such type of inflation occurs due to supply side disruptions. Many factors can be there behind this. Many factors. For example, there might be chances that you don't have the enough transportation capacity, don't have enough roads, railway networks also can be there problem. don't have enough warehouses, sufficient warehouses, cold storage can be there. So you are not able to maintain the supply side. Okay? And that's why such type of inflation occurs. Okay? In simple words, right, in continuation, in simple words, such type of inflation occurs, due to failure of the system. Underline this, due to failure of the system. Failure of the system. ठीक है. अब जैसे कि मान लो कि we have enough food items, we have enough crops also, but what happens कि in the market there are traders who make stocking, who make what you black marketing like that, and that's why they just artificially increase the price in the market. So this is also a point under supply side inflation, means bottleneck inflation. Clear with this? ठीक है. Next है skewflation, SKEW. Skewflation. Can anybody share idea about this? What do you mean by skewflation? Hmm? Almost you are correct. Almost you are correct. Anybody else? तुम बता रहे थे ना? सेक्टर वाला मामला हो जा रहा है. हाँ, वहां पे सही हो, आप भी सही हो. No issues all that. देखो, keep it simple. But when there is a price rise in one or two or a group of commodities like food items, like crude oil, mean to say all the items which we have put in the basket of commodities relatively stable rate than one or two items in the basket. For example, food, fuel, anything can be there. So such inflation is known as skewflation. This word was coined by India in 2009-10 budget, and there was a food inflation in the economy from the 2008 to 10. Okay? So to reflect that, to show that government of India has coined a word skewflation. All other commodities rates were constant at that time, but there was a price rise in the rates of food items, and that's why they coined a term food inflation. Okay? You can note it down. Skewflation में लिख लें. Under this situation, prices of one, comma two, or a group of commodities, or a group of commodities increase, in the basket of commodities, full stop. This word has been coined, this word has been coined, has been evolved by India in the budget of 2009 and 10. In the budget of 2009 and 10. Skewflation. What do you call? So beta, these are the types of inflation. Decoupling, I will tell you कैसे हो रहा है. There are certain reasons of that also. Next. Beta, you come through this also. Phillips curve and stagflation. Phillips curve and stagflation. What do you mean by Phillips curve? His nickname was Bill Phillips. ठीक है. Alban Hugo William Phillips, his full name was like this. प्यार से हम इनको कहते थे बिलुआ चाचा. Bill Phillips. Actually beta, he propounded an idea after a research, a comprehensive research of the United Kingdom's market. ठीक है. London School of Economics, he was doing research and he just observed that, and he took a you can say data of 1857. Okay, I'm not sure about the date, but it was some like 1857 to 1952 or 55, like that, 54, like that. I'm not sure about the date, but it was almost of 100 years data. He researched this data and found a relation between two things: inflation and unemployment. Inflation and unemployment. And he came to a point that there is an inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. Mean to say, he argued that there is a trade-off between inflation and the rate of unemployment in the economy. If there is a rise in the inflation, it will reduce the rate of unemployment. And if there is a fall in the inflation, it will increase the rate of unemployment. And to show this relation, he made a graph. The graph goes like this. 0 on the vertical axis, he took inflation percentage, and horizontal axis, he took percentage of unemployment. Percentage of unemployment. ठीक है? And he argued that, he told that as the inflation increases the economy, unemployment gets decreased. So he just he has shown the idea with this graph, in which if there is a more inflation in your economy, less unemployment will be there. And as it starts decreasing, unemployment starts rising. ठीक है? So just with the help of